I'm gonna call the meeting order at 7:01 PM. Thank you, everybody who made it. We got a really good turnout. We almost would have had enough to have a quorum with the old board. Not even close, but anyways. So the first thing is there any changes to the agenda? And I don't think we have to add anything. Does anybody have anything we missed? Nope. Cool. New business, presentation WCSU budget for FY26, possible action. So we, in the past, we've tried to get the budget out to all the boards ahead of time, and we weren't able to pull that off this year. A lot of stuff going on. We all know that tax rates and budgets and all were really tough. We're going through a huge change where there's a lot less money coming in. There's a lot more money seems to be going out. I think it has got a little better. It's, we have a lot less openings in Windham Central than we have had in Windham Central in our district. I think everybody's actually fully staffed, right? You had one position you had to fill.
Leland Gray is missing counselor. I think
Counselor?
that might be it. Yeah.
Okay, well maybe Joe can counsel us. So, Joe, you ready to counsel?
That sounds exciting.
Okay, so anyways, and this will be Heidi's first budget with us. We have for the last several years, I think it goes back to towards the end of Stephen. The officers have met with the SU staff just to kind of go over it so that we can say, hey, let's have this or let's look at that. It's been a really good situation. So we have broken our budgets, and we have 4 budgets that we're gonna look at tonight: the MTSS, the superintendent's budget, the early ed, and the fee for service, or the old agency fee budget, if you go far back and get really old. So we're gonna go through them one at a time. And I just want everybody to remember, I have a standing joke at town meeting for the last 20 years. And if I could predict what fuel oil is gonna cost a year and a half down the road when we would do the budget, I sure wouldn't be here. I'd be playing the futures market, and I would probably be on a tropical island with a harem of beautiful women, taking care of my every want and need. But I can't predict the future, and this is a budget. It's the best guess based on the information we have. Back one of the first years I was chairman in Dover, we had a person who was in town. We budgeted over $100,000 for some special needs stuff, and like 2 days before school started, we got a call from the principal down in Stamford, and the student had moved down to Stamford, and he was so upset because he didn't budget for it and he didn't know what to do, and he thought we should help him out and just give him the money we budgeted since we budgeted for it already. So again, it's a budget. It's the best guess. But I think Heidi for her first year has done really good, but she was also set up very well by our previous, our I don't know, what do we call her, business manager in retirement mode, waiting?
Soon to be retired.
Soon to be retired.
Bob.
So,
Bob, you have somebody in the waiting room.
Dwight.
oh my gosh, we've got even more.
I think you call it your lame duck.
Yeah, lame duck. There you go. So anyways, Heidi, lead us down and tell us what's happening. Oh, and I just want to say too, we do want to give, when we get through this budget, what always amazes me is, I remember too, a long time ago, and Dan, you may remember this, when budgets used to be a lot easier, we could always get close, and I remember one year Dover had a little bit of a surplus, so they had they gave the teachers a bonus, and they had a big ice cream party for all the staff and students in the community. And I gotta say too, when you look at how good they do with the budgeting, if they don't need to spend it, they don't. So just because we budget it doesn't mean it gets spent. A lot of times, and you'll see in some of our fund balances, we're getting pretty healthy fund balances, which have helped. And don't forget too that we also, with the ARPA funds, I think we're in our final year. We'll still have some of them left. Think of all the towns in the state that the year they got them, they were gone. So there's a lot of really good things that the administration has recommended that we've done as a board, and let's keep up the good work. And we're glad you're here and you're doing a great job. So tell us how we're doing with our budgets.
Thanks, Rich. And there are packets that were in a pile. If everybody got a packet, I think Bob is also going to put some things on the screen so we can sort of follow along.
It'll be a little bigger than that.
Can you make it any bigger? But so we're gonna start with actually what's called section 2, which is the MTSS budget. I kind of followed Lori's format and then we decided to change some things up. So the second part of your packet is section 2, proposed multi-tiered system of support, the MTSS budget. On this first page is just some highlights about what MTSS is and about how we have special education and we have academic support teams, and they work together to work with different tiers of kids and working on increasing their academic performance and their needs. So this is more for informational, which you could go over at your leisure, but it just goes in depth about what MTSS is all about. The aim is to support teachers and staff with resources, training, promoting collaboration, and serving all students, not just special ed students. So you'll find on that second page that I gave a little bit of what the special ed numbers have been. The amount of students year over year, you'll see some slight increases since 23, which is what I started. We were at 192. We're projecting potentially 210 for fiscal year 26, and that's working with the special ed staff to get an idea of what's out there. The first bullet explains that with the flexibilities of Act 173 and MTSS encouraging collaboration between special ed and academic support, we have 6 paraeducators throughout the SU and a few professional staff that deal with all students, not just students on IEPs. What you will notice about the numbers as we get into the budget in a couple pages is that the MTSS budget expenses are up 7.1%, the amount of $559,000, which is a little on the high side, but it's pretty realistic for the fact that health insurance is going up 11.9%. We have, I should say, the staff are in negotiations, so I had to come up with an estimate for some salary increases, so that's built into this budget. Retirement increases. So the downside, the bad side is that the federal funds that we are getting are also significantly decreasing for FY26 to the tune of almost 400,000. So the net effect is 49.2% over last year without any fund balance applied. So as you can imagine, would be a very steep increase for everybody. So the recommendation is to use $1 million from your fund balance to offset the year-over-year assessment and reduce the increase to 18.7%. And then I explained that one of the largest contributing factors is the increase for healthcare and retirement, and that's at about $181,000 for this upcoming year.
And one of the things that we've been talking about and having discussed this with the SU executive committee, that the central office is going to be getting an MTSS audit of our systems, because one of the concerns that I have coming in and after being here for a little bit, wondering whether our system is set up to deliver the highest quality possible interventions for kids at the most efficient cost. And I'm not saying we don't have that. What I'm saying is I am questioning whether we do. And so we're going to be bringing in a third-party consultant to do an audit of our systems to find out if we have any potential improvements or reorganizations, restructuring, and along the way some efficiencies. Unfortunately, that won't be completed or conducted until after you guys will need budgets in your individual districts from the SU budget. So whatever savings we realize potentially for next year with those restructuring will just be savings you realize next year. So we can't build that in right now. I just can't predict what it will be because I don't know what it will be. But that is happening, so I want people to know that we are looking to find those efficiencies as well.
So you'll also notice on that page that I wrote down some of the reductions that have happened, but also that there's now some new staff that need to be hired either currently in the year or for next year. And so while we're losing a few, we're also needing to replace some. And your current fund balance is 1.6 million. So if you use $1 million to decrease the cost of this budget I'm proposing, you're gonna have 645,000 left. So there is the budget revenue on the first page to show the significant decreases in,
This all should be in your package, Steve, if you have
Yeah.
hard copies.
yeah. So we are expecting more special ed extraordinary reimbursements because some of our special ed attend outside placements that are costing significant money, and so we will get more back than we have in the past. But the census block grant has gone down significantly, and there is a graph, one of the last pages, that sort of sums up everything, and the graph that is attached shows everything without putting in the $1 million potential fund balance, so I wanted to then create another one to see the difference between the two. So if you look at the graph, the one that's in your packet, you'll see the census block grant is down about 10% from last year, 240,000, which the census block built in with Act 173 has a 5-year
This is different.
decrease. So next year is the last year that it will decrease. It also, I have verified with the AOE, there's no inflationary measures built into the legislation right now. So as the census block grant decreases.
Sorry, hold on one second. That's a different page.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's with the $1 million
You have, this
fund
is the
balance.
new, you have the new version he's giving you. You do, okay, all right, sorry.
This is without citing.
So once again, there's no inflationary increase built into the legislation for the census block grant. So as it decreases, and again, next year, for fiscal year 27, it will go to its lowest. And unless the legislation changes, it will never increase while our costs are always increasing because of health insurance and salary increases. So we're really struggling with that.
And then one thing I was gonna say to the folks that are on Zoom, the copy that she just handed out is the updated version of this chart, but with the $1 million fund balance applied. I can get that email to you guys, but I'm trying to run the Zoom and run the slideshow simultaneously on 2 different computers. So I'll have to get that to you after.
It ends up showing an 18.65% increase after the $1 million fund balance applied to this budget. And then it also has the breakdown of what the assessments would be for each school district based on this year-over-year variance of the ADM, which was adopted 2 years ago. The WCSU board last year approved the 2-year ADM average for the methodology that's used. Lori worked on that, and so I mean, I don't know if there's some discussion or questions. If you want to look at anything.
No, we'll do questions when you're on this. Are you all set?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, Heidi. That's great, thank you. I guess I'm concerned that we underfund ourselves if we spend $1 million out of that 1.6. I'm sure you thought that through. Remind us what the $600,000 leaves in terms of percentage of that overall MTSS budget. I'm also curious how we ended up with a $1.5 million fund balance. Has that been gradually accruing over the years, or is that a result of under expenditures in 1 or 2 years?
So I think what you'll find is that we created budgets with what we expected, and then Lori was able to use some ESSER funds and some CFP money in the last few years when there was a little extra to help move some money around, to help build this fund balance, because we knew that when the ESSER funds went away, that with the academic support coming half out of the CFP funds, the title funds that are slowly decreasing, she knew we were gonna hit sort of a wall. So she spent some years building it up. And so this fund balance document that was the end of '24 shows, for instance, that the MTSS received $144,000 from last year's '24 budget that was surplus. So it's been over the course of a number of years that there's been a trickling in of that, preparing us for this sort of wall that we knew we were going to hit. And I think that's another reason why Bob is working so hard to try to find some efficiencies within the MTSS budget, so that as this money, we know we've only got another year left to get the fund balance down. So while things are changing in Vermont, you know, as I brought some information to the officers, Emily was interested in knowing that there's no inflationary measure in the census block grant. So, you know, I think our hope is that we're buying some time while we try to figure out what could be done for more efficiency in the district, as well as what's the state going to do and what's funding going to change in the next year or so. So, so using up $1 million, you wanted to know what the percentage was?
Approximate, yeah.
I mean, let me just put it in my Excel spreadsheet here.
Well, it's
Is
I
it
mean, it's
$5
not,
million?
It's almost, yeah, 4.8 million.
Yeah, so it's over 10% still that.
The 600 would be,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just, I think too, again, remember what I said earlier too, just because the money's in there doesn't mean you spend it. And I think that's some of that fund balance. And then, Bob, can you just, Bob also mentioned he wants to have an audit done. So, you know, that audit's gonna be able to come out of money from this year that we have in the budget, so it's not like an addition, and we're hoping that that could help bring it down. Then again, we never know what's gonna happen up in Montpelier under the Golden Dome. You know, they may look at this, and there may be a lot of other schools that have hit a bigger wall because they didn't save any money. So we don't know what's gonna happen there too, but we have to have a budget, so at least that can get out to the school districts, especially like West River, that needs to have their budget together a little earlier than the rest of us.
Rich, if I could add, yeah, that's exactly my memory of what you were saying, Heidi, that this was very purposeful
yes.
in building this fund balance. I mean, probably unlike many business managers in business, they're probably not having the luxury of having a fund balance to
Right, Lori was
rely
very
on.
thoughtful about this in the last 5 years, knowing, planning. She was
Yeah.
very good at strategic planning like that.
Yeah, so very much on purpose, and that's why we're doing this right now.
Ramp instead of cliff.
Yeah, exactly. So makes perfect sense.
And I'm also glad too.
Ramps
just-
still go down though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we've also, I mean, we've been over in River Valley's been playing with the fund budget balance for a while, that we've been able to help buy down the tax rate too. And I think it's very smart not to take it all, because like you're kind of think where you're headed, Dan, is it's really easy to say, well, let's save even more and go, you know, use all of it. And again, it's unaudited too. We don't know how the year's gonna end. The crystal ball is really cloudy. So I think, you know.
Yeah. And when we started, we were looking at 800.
Yeah.
So
When we started talking
when we
about
started
this.
talking internally about it, we were thinking, well, maybe 800 is what the recommendation is, but as things came together more, we're like, eh.
Yeah.
But you guys could certainly do what you want
Right.
to do with it. You could make it 800 and save, you know, put the other half, leave the other half for now. But
Okay. Is there, like, Bob, is there anybody on TV that?
there's no hands raised. Emily turned her video on,
Is
so I
there
don't know if
any-
that means she wants to jump in or not.
Who?
Emily.
Emily.
It didn't mean that I wanted to jump in, but since you gave me the opportunity, I'll just quickly jump in and say, as Heidi mentioned just now, I was quite surprised. I'll say that there wasn't an inflationary method built into 173, and I just want to mention that 173 is one of the many topics that are under consideration right now, and because it seems very clear that while Windham Central has done a fantastic job implementing 173 in the way it was intended, that is absolutely not true of school districts across the state. In fact, very few school districts across the state. And that is because the legislative intent for Act 173 was never followed. So it is under deep scrutiny, and I would just suggest that we continue to monitor, and I certainly will be in my dual roles, continuing to monitor and be aggressive about making sure that it's not just about inflationary increases, but that the program itself, 173, and the changes to the delivery of special education in our school districts needed support, and it didn't get it. So I just want to say that, put it on the record, and know that I am all over this and will do whatever I can to make sure that we are all in our school districts across the state being supported in the law in the way it was intended.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Are there any other comments? I was trying to, sometimes it's hard to get the numbers, but I believe, just so we get it right, the total budget is $8,457,990.02.
Yes.
Okay, so remember, we don't approve income and we don't approve, all we approve is an expenditure. And then I think Heidi didn't say it, but if you keep going in your packet, you got all the breakdown if you have any, regular education, special, eligible for reimbursement, there's the teachers, it's pretty standard. We've been using this form for several years now.
And we also included this page, which shows the staffing and the fund sources. So
Should be
these,
the last page.
this is just the folks that are funded through the MTSS budget. You can see we're talking about a total of 62 and a half FTEs of people. And these are the people who are the vast majority are special educators and AST teachers that are in buildings, distributed by the SU, 2 buildings, based on IEP needs, based on intervention needs, to perform those services. The potential inefficiencies that I refer to has to do with the fact that often those people operate in a silo because they're serving only a certain kid or a certain type of kid. An IEP student is being served by a special educator, and AST is serving gen ed. What 177 intended, I think what Emily's referencing on the delivery side, is that there's more of a blend. And that if the AST teacher has a math background and the IEP student has math disability, you don't have to have the special educator work with them. You could bring the math person over and have them do that teaching, which makes more sense. It's better for the kid. So that flow, it's the same pool of money, it's the same budget, and it's the same, they're all SU employees that get designated to the buildings, could be potentially more efficiently utilized. So that's what we're looking to study.
So I said this at the executive committee, and it's not necessarily a criticism of this effort on your half, Bob, but the only way I see real savings accrue is there would be fewer people doing the work. And I just want this board to be clear about that. I feel like if we're going to go into this and spend the money, that the people whose jobs are potentially on the line kind of need to know that. And I think it would be unfair if we didn't say that. Doesn't mean that there will be loss of work, but there easily could be. We're spending money to eliminate jobs. And I just want to reiterate that because I feel like it's fair to the people, only fair to the people who work for us.
And that's, again, as I mentioned, the secondary impact. The primary impact is to figure out how to best serve the kids. And if there's inefficiencies, there's efficiencies. So, but yes, the primary thing is about kids. That's a distinct possibility. You're absolutely right. And there are models across the SU where it actually is already pretty well blended. Marlboro, in fact, is a pretty good example of that. The two individuals happen to work in one room together, as Dana was explaining last night at the meeting, and really, kind of do that flow. In Wardsboro, it's one person who's half and half. They clearly work together. It's one person. So like there are places where there are models of it already working. So it's not like there's going to be slash and burn type of approach. But there may be places where it's not.
And also, I think he said in maybe the executive meeting that that we had the study done originally when the state brought them in, but there was a little bit of a lapse because there was supposed to be another step to that process. It never happened because of COVID.
Right, so that's the
What you're looking
DMG.
to do is kind of go that next step that we probably should have done a few years ago,
Yeah,
or
so that-
should have been done.
Yeah, that DMG report, RSU, if you may remember, was one of the 5, I think, in the state that were surveyed and studied to help impact the implementation of 173. So it'll be interesting to kind of look back now on, well, did we realize what it was supposed to be? Did we realize the dream, if you will? Because the financial side has just been, here's less money. And that's, so they got what they needed on their end, but we haven't really done the implementation side to see, did we actually implement it correctly? I think that's, Emily's referencing that as well. But yeah, the financial piece, that's another ramp, just keeps going down. And as we saw, the numbers of special ed students keep going up. And as our enrollment goes down, guess what? That's a higher percentage. So anyways, so you can kind of understand why it's essential for us to look at that as an area to study.
Is there any other questions or comments? Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I was just wondering, are people being efficient enough that they're picking up on more of these students' needs than they have in the past? I mean, that's why our numbers have gone up, is they're getting better at their jobs at finding.
Yeah, I mean,
Things.
our local common assessment plan has significant screeners in place across the board for all the way through 8th grade. And so, and even Dana's doing more of the high school screening now. So, and each of those screeners then lead to further diagnostics. And Jen created that whole system, and that has really helped us target kids. But I think that there's, I think if we've looked at the numbers, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I'm going to say like 40 to 50% of our students are receiving some kind of intervention, whether it's special ed, EST, or through an interventionist based on the screening results. So like that's,
I think it's higher than that.
it might be, I didn't want to go higher,
Yeah,
but it could
I
be.
remember that
I was trying to be
conversation.
conservative on that one, but it's a lot of our kids that need those. And it's based on whether or not they're hitting, targets for staying on grade level in those areas.
So we're basically doing the IEPs. We're hitting where kids are struggling, students are struggling.
Mhm.
We're identifying those struggles and we're taking care of them. So,
But the challenge with more
yeah,
percentages is more need, and the problem with more need is it costs more, and the problem with cost more is that there's less revenue.
yeah.
And so that's why you're seeing things like a 49% impact on a budget. That's 49%. I mean, she told me that initially. I'm like, check your math.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, that's. And so, yeah, but it does feel pretty obscene when you think about it from that standpoint. But it's
Yeah.
really the lost revenue with a 7% increase in expenditures. It's, maybe a little higher than what people have seen in the past, but it's not crazy.
Yeah.
But then you throw in the reduction in the revenue, and
That's what kills
that's what kills us.
Yeah.
And so we have to be thinking deficiencies to get there.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to change.
But the other thing too, don't forget, we've come out of a real COVID mess,
Yeah.
Yep.
And we also, we've been working, we brought in, Stephanie's done a fantastic job in trying to get everybody out there, like you said, identifying
Yep.
more people
Money.
before it's a severe problem. Eventually, we should see, and I think the whole idea behind this was that eventually we'll see some savings because, we're not just focusing on the students that really need, but we're focusing on students that don't quite make that level where they could get an IEP, but yet
Yeah.
we're gonna give them a little bit of support.
Yeah.
And, we started that
Get
over
there.
years ago, and we saw a huge reduction. But, COVID kind of reset everything to now we're like starting from scratch again. So,
Emily has her hand up.
go ahead, Emily, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. This is a really important conversation. I just want to, following on what Bob was saying about Act 173, I actually this law was delayed several years after it was passed because of COVID and many other things. But I just want to say I was on the education committee when we passed this law, and the intent really was to serve students in a better way and to reduce our costs locally. We were seeing great increases in sending our kids outside of our school districts to alternative programs. And the feedback we had been getting at the time was that students are better served in their own district close to home. So the intent was first to serve children better. The secondary intent was to lower costs. That is the part that we've moved forward with the lowering costs, but we haven't followed. I don't want to go deep into it because I just said it, but we haven't followed the law, and I've been looking into it a little more, and we've followed it even less than I had hoped. So, I just want to make sure that we are clear in that the intent was to make sure that our students' needs were being met and keeping children in our schools. And you've heard me say this before many times, Windham Central has, because they were one of those 5, I think you're right, Bob, I think it was 5 school districts that got involved early on. And I totally appreciate the leadership of Windham Central and Stephanie and the Bill and others before Bob even, to jump in on this and do the right thing. And I just want to make sure that we follow through on this law and make sure that we're still continuing to do the right thing for our kids. If we don't put our kids first, we are failing in every way. So just wanted to clarify that and make sure that everybody knew that this law wasn't about cutting spending. It was about serving students better at a more efficient, in a more efficient way.
And I guess, I don't think we should leave the federal government off the hook either. I mean, this is their responsibility, and I don't know what percentage we get now, but it's in the single digits, I know, so.
4 is what I've heard. I haven't qualified that, but I've heard recently 4.
Now, I'm not suggesting we do anything about that, because, that bus is left, but.
Yeah.
Thought that was
4 out of 40, just for clarity for everybody.
a while ago.
At 4.
Yeah, so you see so the census block is down almost 10%. The federal money coming in is 7%, and special ed is down 41% for the IDEA. So those are all flowing through, and they're all going down. But they weren't that high to begin with, as pointed out.
Just to make sure everybody understands, because it's better where people might watch this. It's very important to note, when the IDEA passed in the mid 70s, I can't remember the year it passed, 74. Can't remember the exact year, but when it passed, it was intended to fund 40%. It never funded 40%, not once. And that it went maybe a few years ago, 5 years ago, more, it was in the teens, and it kept lowering. And when I heard recently it was down to 4%, I was absolutely appalled. This is about our kids.
I didn't think it ever paid more than 70% of what it was supposed to.
Definitely was less than that,
Yeah.
Was intended to, and if anybody remembers our late Senator Jim Jeffords, he fought against this for years, that it was not fully funded. He wanted it to be fully funded. The law was intended to be fully funded, which was at 40% rate. It never reached that 40% rate. Not once.
But we can't cry over spilt milk.
No, but it's important that everybody knows.
Well, it's the taxpayers that are picking it up.
Look,
That's the problem.
But it's like everything, the government does something and they fund it for a certain amount, and then every year they fund it less, and it seems like, and they give it more to the locals, the local level, but they take all the control up at the top and say, you gotta do this, we're gonna give you some money, and then we give you less all the time, and we add a few more rules to make it a little more confusing.
This isn't a state law, it's a federal law.
No, I understand that, but the feds flow down the state flows down to the local, and it seems like we're always flowing downhill.
Do we
So-
need a motion?
Yeah, you wanna make a motion? You know the number?
I would love to make that motion. So for the FY '26 budget for MTSS gross expenses, local and grant, $8,457,990.
Do we have a second to Al's motion?
Do you have
I'll second it. This is Dan.
fund balance in it?
No.
No. Okay. So separate motion.
No, it's not a motion. We don't need that motion. We vote to spend the money.
Okay.
Okay,
Built in with the recommendation.
right, so you can,
I got you. Okay.
that's what we discussed, and that's what we're gonna do. Okay, so we have a motion for the MTSS budget to expend $8,457,990 and we have a second by Dan. Is there any more discussion? There's no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Please say nay. I take it that it sounds like a unanimous decision in the affirmative. You agree? Okay, it's a unanimous decision in the affirmative. Congratulations, you just spent $8.5 million.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. So the next budget we're gonna look at is, we're gonna look at Bob. Oh, wait, we're gonna look at the superintendent's office. I'm sorry, it was close.
Okay, so I have to get that up, so give me a second here.
Okay, so is that should be
That's
section,
it's section 1, it has actually with the title page on it. It was the first one in the packet that says proposed annual proposed budget. It's like right under your agenda.
There you go. Oh, it's got the fancy cover
It's got the
page.
fancy
Yeah.
cover.
Okay, so if, we'll get started, Bob will put it up if you guys didn't get it in your, emails. So superintendent budget narrative, tell us.
Great, so overall, the superintendent's expenses are down 4.7%. In large part to the retirement of the previous business manager who stayed on for 6 months to help transition. And another full position is being reduced to a half position due to a retirement at the end of the year as well. Unfortunately, the revenues have also continued to decrease again because as the federal grants decrease, the federal indirect funding, which is part of the administration of it, also decreases based on numbers. So with the expiration of ESSER and the consolidated federal grants going down, that's also going to show up on this super's budget. The technology part of the budget is down 3.2%. That's due to a reduction of professional staff, as well as Matt agreeing to a reduction of tech hardware next year, trying to create lower budgets for us all. There is a change to how the technology budget is going to be allocated this year. I don't know if Bob wants to talk to that. How Lori has done it in the past, which was started long ago by Frank, was really the cost of an individual in each of the buildings, and has been used as the model up until Matt took over last year, and now the model has changed. So all the other budgets have been done on a long-term ADM student count that we get through the state, a 2-year rolling average. So we were trying to align the technology budget with all the other budgets through that same methodology, if that makes sense. The current fund balance for the general fund superintendent's budget is $361,000. So that is available if you want to use any, as the model that we're going forward with that I'm presenting doesn't use any fund balance right now. So that's obviously for discussion. So you'll see the reduction of the positions that I just talked about listed under reductions. This proposed budget takes into account that there's going to be some negotiations for some raises for some of the employees. Not most of them. The other ones, the handbook employees, are giving a 3% increase based on the executive committee's discussion. Again, healthcare is at 11.9% increase. Some other adjustments to the budget, there was about a $7,000 increase due to an increase in rent. Some supplies and insurance has gone up a lot this past year. So, again, my next bullet reminds us that there's a $40,000 decrease with indirect monies coming in through the federal grants, and an explanation of the supply increase is because Bob is hoping to start giving annual milestone recognitions because we have such great experienced staff in our SU that he would like to acknowledge those annually. And you'll also see the executive committee for the board voted earlier this year, in the beginning of the summer, when we were purchasing new printers and copiers throughout the district, as a supervisory union, excuse me. that we paid the entire 5-year lease up front this year, so we're gonna be over budget in that line item this year, but it's removing those numbers out of the next few years' budgets. There's just gonna be small maintenance annual expenses in the budgets, so
We save the interest.
we saved interest, yep. Yeah. So, little explanations on what indirect costs are and how they've gone down the last few years. So we're at 3.61 indirect rate from 4.66 for current year, and then from 8% the year before. The cost of living adjustment that's been announced is 2.5%, and the national income and product account is estimated to be 3%, but it hasn't been announced yet. So this next page that has just a little bit of a summary shows what the revenue and expenses are in this budget, and shows that there is no use of fund balance. Last year you used $95,000 to help reduce it was mainly to help with the transition of the business manager to help fund that. So if anybody'd like to discuss it, we can apply some, but it does still have a 4.7% decrease. So there is some pages with the changes, and then there's a page with the assessments. So assessments, the 2-year average long-term ADM is listed there in the orange color, and then the assessments based on those percentages of the total number. And again, these are students and buildings count, that's not weighted. So these services, there's a few services, Stratton and Windham are not paying technology because they are non-operational. So it is Marlboro, River Valley, and West River that share the cost of the tech assessment, which is why the two assessments are not combined, so that you can see that that Stratton and Windham are not being charged that. And this is Wyndham's first full year of non-operational, so.
And just to highlight there, so you do see on that middle table that the increases that appear to be, that are big increases in 2 of them, and then some decreases in others have to do with the reallocation of to the long-term weighted ADM model, and Windham being out, that had to be redistributed. So that's why you're seeing some differences there.
So the bottom part of this page shows the combined numbers for each of the school districts and the percentage of the variance over fiscal year 25.
You all set?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
So I'm wondering if we ought to consider applying some of the fund balance. It seems like we're well over the 10% there. I throw out a number, 100,000. That would still leave 261 in the fund balance. I guess I feel like that's not an unwise fiscal move. I throw that out. I know it's, yes, it's already reduced by 4.7%, but you know, it's all money.
And the other one isn't reduced.
Yeah.
And we still have 2 more budgets to go
Yeah.
through. Okay. So why don't we, I think we can have that discussion, kind of blend it all in. So both the superintendents and I think what I would do, Dan, because that's not presented in here, if somebody makes a motion to approve the budget, that we want to add into there that we want to move 100,000 of fund balance when we get there. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? TV land? You want to make a motion, Dan?
So you're suggesting that we approve it as presented and then have a second motion?
No, just I would make it all in one motion.
All in one motion.
That I would approve the superintendent's budget at that number that's in there. But and part of that is that we use 100,000 in fund balance to reduce the cost to the SU.
Is that the 2 million?
Not 2,098,550.
I will make a motion that we approve superintendent's budget of $2,098,550, and that we apply $100,000 of the fund balance toward that expenditure.
I'll second it.
Okay, so I have a motion by Dan to approve the proposed budget of $2,098,550 and utilize $100,000 of fund balance. And Dana seconded the motion. So that's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any thoughts, any comments?
Before you jump to that, I just want to add the last page here is the similar staffing numbers for the superintendent's budget to show that there are, in essence, 14 FTEs entirely funded by local dollars with a total of 19.5 in the budget itself. So some are coming from other sources.
Right, within the clerks and the supervisors.
So we wanted to highlight that we were asked to do that by the officers, so.
Okay, so is there any discussion on the motion that's on the floor to expend $2,098,550 for the superintendent's budget and utilize $100,000 of fund balance or surplus to fund it? If everybody's shaking their head no, you ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed?
No.
But you voting no?
Nope, sorry. It
Oh.
comes out of my mouth every time. I voted yes. You asked a question and I answered it.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry. Okay, so it
It does
appears,
happen every time, doesn't it, Allison?
Every time.
it appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is a unanimous decision in the affirmative, so that one, you'll adjust that.
Yep, I
You can
just did
send
it.
that back
I
out
will.
to everybody.
Okay.
Okay, so Bob will send out a new updated form for the superintendent's budget because obviously it's now gonna change a little with the fund balance. So we're gonna jump right into the next one, is gonna be the early ed, used to be called early ed, what's it called now?
No, it's-
ECSC.
It's early childhood special education.
There you go. You
Okay.
gonna present this one to us,
Sure,
man?
sure.
You're 2 for 2, you gonna go 3 for 3
I'm
tonight?
gonna try.
Okay.
Hang in there with me. So again, the first page explains a little bit about the fact that early childhood special education is specifically about younger children up to the age of 5 years and 11 months. After consulting with the special education director, it's clear that there's some significant needs of young children that are gonna be entering our system. So we have added 2.5 paraeducators to this ECSE budget because of the significant needs we're seeing. So you'll notice on the summary that the expenses for this budget are up $115,198 over last year's expenses, which is a 38.2% increase, which is significant, but again, this budget is much smaller, so 115,000 represents 38%. Again, it's for a couple, this really comes to, in part because of these paraeducators. So the budget is shared among the district on the same methodology of the 2-year ADM. There is no fund balance for the ECSE budget. So there's some line items, it's a couple pages of budget, 1, 2, and then there's the allocations in the back. We do use the IDAB pre-K to fund some of this, both the IDAB and the one specifically for pre-K. So a number of these positions will be funded through those grants, but it's still significant. We've estimated a couple of the positions with healthcare. That may not happen, but I felt like maybe not build it in for all the positions, but we needed to be conservative there. So there is currently, well, with the expected staff, we will have 5.4 ECSE staff, and that's shown on the last page. So we're looking to the final number on this budget is $416,167.
Or 16,167.
Yes.
Okay, Dan.
I had my fun. Somebody else ought to take this one.
Okay,
I'll make this motion.
go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure of $416,167 for the early childhood special education budget.
Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Al seconds it. Oh, were you gonna second it?
Sorry.
He just,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
just
you
jumped
take it.
all over you.
I did not say it. Go ahead.
It's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Rachel.
I will end up with.
So
no
anyways,
seconds.
it's the West River guys, you know, they like to bang,
Yeah.
be together. So anyways, we have a motion to approve the early childhood special ed $416,167. Is there any discussion, any comments? God, they're getting less and less. You're all ready to vote? Okay. All those in favor of the early childhood special education budget of $416,167, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, except for Allison, everybody stare at Allison. Anybody opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative, even Allison. It is a unanimous decision in the affirmative. So we're gonna go to the last budget. This is like peanuts compared to all the rest of them. You ready for this one?
I think so.
Okay. This is the only one that's in order too, right? Yeah. Fee for service budget, yay. Tell us about this one.
The current fund balance for this FFS budget is $169,338. That has not been applied to anything. These budgeted items in this particular budget are for an ELL teacher, which only a couple districts use, a PE teacher, which a few districts use, guidance services, which one district uses, and busing services, which 2 districts have. We also have the child nutrition program administrative fees in this that everybody shares equally by ADM, and professional development funds for the Central SU and the West River staff. So when you look at this budget, you can see the allocations under the yellow highlights along the side, showing they go in line with what's in the budget. So the first one is ELL teacher, showing split 25 and 75 between West River and River Valley. You have PE, that's between River Valley and West River. You have guidance, that's half-time position that goes to Newbrook. You have the PD, that's shared between West River and Windham Central staff. You have the 1,400, which is in there, which is all SU, really has to do with criminal background checks and that kind of funds that go through. And then you have the transportation. So there's some for Wardsboro and River Valley. There's all the busing for West River, and Windham is now having their bus paid for through the central office since they don't have any other staff. And then the food operations, the bottom of that page. And that does it. So your bottom line here, the proposed budget is $853,793.
What's different than what's here?
Yeah, 914.
You got 854, 475.
I assume that was there before I went in and made some changes, and that should have been deleted from, that's my
I mean,
mistake.
it's $500, but.
Yeah, I think there was,
So you're
Some-
good with 853, 790?
I am, yeah.
Okay, so it's a different number, so just make sure to remember 853, 793. And just a little background on this, so many, many years ago, when we used to meet in the library, because some school districts were concerned that their budgets got turned down, and there used to be a lot more items in this. I mean, there used to be instrumental music, and there was guidance, and there was several different staff positions. And everybody took part of it because West River was all the separate schools, and each school had its own budget. And there was concern if a budget didn't pass, you've already committed to this budget, so we would not vote on this until after the school district meeting, so at a reorg meeting. The issue now is that there's really not a lot of stuff in here. So we could vote on it if you wanted to, and I don't know if there's a reason why. I think, Al, we discussed it as the executive committee. I mean, the officers, like, as I said, always meet with the business manager and the superintendent. And there was even discussion of maybe they can just roll this right into the superintendent's budget. And they would have to change the allocation a little bit so that it would cover for those that use it. So we can vote on this if you want, or we don't have to, we can postpone it, but it just, it would be easier if people knew what was going on. So we wanted to throw that out there and you all can decide. So comments, thoughts? Dan, you wanna go first?
I'm sitting here pondering, so you don't want to hear that.
Okay. Any comments, any thoughts on that? Do you wanna vote on it tonight? Do you wanna, Al saying yes?
I don't think it's definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot smaller than it ever used to be, and there's a lot less people. Yeah, if you look, it's a total of 1.8 people.
Yeah.
2 people.
So I will say, so we vote on this tonight, that means we're obligated to spend this money, whether the individual school district budget calls or not.
Yeah, so you won't be able to take it away.
But Marlboro only, we're only up for $9,000 total on this.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
and that you'll have to spend because you have to go, your food program has to go through here. That's why we were saying it may make sense for this to go into the superintendent's budget.
What would it take to get them to do that? Vote from
I-
us or vote
No, I
from
think
the
next year, I mean, we didn't want to throw too much at Heidi being new. We wanted her not to leave us. You know, Bob's got a 55-year contract, so he was hoping Heidi would stay for at least a third of it. Hang on, folks. Go ahead, Emily.
I just want to say, I really appreciate this conversation, and I'm comfortable with us voting on this tonight. This has really shifted so significantly over the years. And I really do think that it makes sense for us to put this into the superintendent's budget. I didn't want us to do it as officers meeting with the superintendent and the business manager, but I really think that if this board is in agreement, that makes total sense to me.
Yeah, I
Now
would
that we've changed this.
I just would not want to do it tonight because we didn't warn to do, and I think we should do it at reorg maybe.
I'm fine with that. I just wanted to present the conversation tonight so that people would understand what this is. And I truly appreciate that we're having this option to put it into the superintendent's budget.
And, you know, the other thing too is who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years. There may be more, more consolidation or, but really the big one was West River, because again, all those 4 elementary schools, used to all have a whole bunch of different positions to fill and they all came out of separate budgets. So it made a lot of sense. It makes less sense now, but we still have to approve the 853, 793. And I would think, Emily, I think to your point, I think, we could put that, ask Bob to keep that in, in the parking lot so that we can bring it up at the reorg meeting and that way Heidi can get her feet under and then next year we can maybe only have 3 budgets to approve.
My hope is that having this conversation tonight has prepared us for having that conversation at reorg. Was what I had hoped.
Yeah.
And so I think we've done that tonight, and I'm happy to make that motion to approve the.
What is this budget?
853, 793.
Oh, I know the number, but what do we call it? The fee for service
service.
budget for
Yeah.
$853,793.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so Emily moved and Rachel seconded. Even though I think we may have woken her up.
You were contemplating also, weren't you?
Yeah, distracted.
You don't want to get started.
So is anybody, any more discussion? Is everybody ready to vote? If you're all ready to vote, all those in favor of fee for service 853, 793, please signify so by saying aye.
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 Oh, we have, everybody's here.
Paul,
West
you wanna
River. Okay. Look at that, we've got 3 boards with 4 board, every board except for Windham is here in full force. Any opposed, say nay, except for Allison. Okay, appears as though the ayes have it as a unanimous vote. It is a unanimous vote in favor of. Congratulations, you just did your first budget through.
Yay.
Well done.
I might pass out now.
I don't even see any sweat on the brow. And I think, again, does anybody from here have an objection to maybe ask our business manager after we get through these meetings at our reorg meeting in the spring to maybe present, to have a discussion about combining that and get her thoughts on that and Bob's thoughts, and then we can maybe vote on that. It would have been warned, and it is a pretty big change.
I have to say, Lori has been hoping this would happen for years now.
Well, that's why we're waiting till after she's
She will be sad about that, but she'll be happy.
if she had stayed, it may have happened
Maybe
under her
this will
reign.
change your mind.
No, you're the person, you're the business manager now.
I think I recall my mother, when she was town clerk, complaining about them being two separate signatures.
Yeah, it's really time to make it one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, folks, congratulations, you did a really lion's share of work tonight. Dan and Emily and maybe Al remembers when it used to be 4 or 5 nights and we would have a meeting week after week and we would cut $10 but we've never had fund balances and so.
So we just want to take a quick look at the pie chart.
Oh.
Just because we wanted you to have a visual of the fact that most of this pie is people in the schools working with kids directly. The superintendent's budget, the dark blue area, is administration costs, but technology works with the students and teachers in the classrooms, sometimes remotely, but all of this is really students and getting attention in the classrooms. So, it's unfortunate that the biggest part of this is special ed, but
But it's not really,
needs.
because it's
Funded.
also,
It's also
right,
MTSS.
it's funded,
Right,
so
and right.
it's not like it used to be, so.
So, just an
And
overview.
then the last, what you have in your packet too is the overall picture of what each district
Which will
has.
change slightly because now we're applying.
$100,000, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll update all that documentation, get that out to the chairs, and the chairs can share.
Well, also,
The full SU board.
It will be in the budgets that I present to all the boards.
right, so everybody will see your numbers here shortly. I think Marlboro, you guys, you voted town meeting still.
We do, yeah.
Yeah.
Australian ballot.
Right, and West River, you guys have your meeting before town meeting, right? So you're gonna be,
No, after town
After.
meeting, the
oh,
end
it's
of
after,
March.
Like
it's the end of March?
3 weeks
Yeah, it's
after.
end of March.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you won't put your budget together till December. You
We're
have it done by
starting right
January.
away.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Stratton's budget, they take forever, I mean, they yeah.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Wow, always first.
Emily has her hand up again.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Emily.
No worries. I was waiting for the right moment to say this. I want to say, first of all, how much I appreciate Heidi. Thank you. You jumped into this and handled this in a way that made it feel like you've been doing this for a really long time, and I know you haven't. So I know you have good support in the central office through Bob and while Lori was there. But this is no small thing. So I wanted to say thank you for that. But I also want to mention, I'm going to go on my little bandwagon that I have been doing an awful lot of lately, based on why I think, part of the reason why I think we're in the situation we're in, and that is using revenue and using surplus to buy down our expenditures, our property tax rates, all of that. You heard me vote in favor of all of this tonight, and I continue to do that because I think that we in Windham Central have been incredibly responsible in saving as much money as we can and creating fund balances and maintaining fund balances, and I have deep faith that we're going to continue to do that. But when we artificially buy down costs, we have to make up for them somewhere, and always. And I say this because in the legislature, the state has been buying down property tax rates for a long time, too long. And
Yeah,
that's
keep it
part of the
changing.
reason we're in the situation we're in. And I'm just going to keep, West River Board has heard me say this many times, but I just want to go on record to say it here that our needs keep growing and our expenses keep growing, and eventually fund balances and revenue dries up. And I think we're at that place. And so I just wanted to go on record to share that my feelings, my concerns about doing that.
So Emily, oh, you want, go ahead.
I want to point out something. I remember an arcane discussion about the amount of a gift that people on this board are allowed to receive. Rich, you might remember this. Emily, you probably remember it. Internal discussion about whether it should be $15, which I think is what it is, the maximum gift that any of us can receive. Should that be 10? Should it be 25? So, you're right. We have spent a lot of time discussing things that make such little difference, and yet we can go through, spending this kind of money in a reasonable amount of time. So just remember, $15. I think it's still the maximum that you're allowed to receive as a gift,
How much money?
Yeah,
or the value of,
I could do a quick tally.
No,
keep us honest, right?
And Emily, I was gonna say, I don't disagree with you that, eventually you gotta pay the piper, but the other thing is, we're always gonna have, I hope that we always have extra money at the end of the year, because again, like I said in the beginning of the meeting, it's a budget. We can't predict to a penny the future. So there's extra money, and I think that it's wise not to spend it all in one shot, because there's gonna be a year that we're gonna have budgeted poorly, or things are gonna change, or we're gonna have another COVID, or who knows what. And we may wind up saying that, yeah, we budgeted $10, but we spent 12, So next year we gotta make up those two. That's why I think a reasonable fund balance, and I thought Dan's motion was good to, take some of it out, even though that budget was down. There could have been the feeling to not spend it, but I think we should maybe think about more of a policy on how much we do wanna keep. I mean,
Right.
Rich, can I just want to add to that, because I voted for what we did.
I know.
And so I do support it. I will just say that at the end of our last biennium, there was a suggestion by the governor of the administration that we use and this goes to what you just spoke about, our rainy day fund for the education fund, to spend that down to lower property tax rates. I voted against doing that, or I would have voted if we had ever brought it forward. I protested against doing that because I deeply believe there should be a fund balance, a rainy day fund in place to make sure that we are being responsible for Vermonters, so that we don't have these surprise things happen. I am in total agreement with what you're just saying. So I actually love the idea of what you just suggested, that maybe at some point we talk about a policy about how much we need in what we in the state call a rainy day fund, but can be called anything we want in Windham Central, because we don't actually have a policy around it. And I think it's a good idea. It's just responsible, and we have been incredibly responsible in our budgeting for many years here, and I want to continue to support that. I only wanted to go on record to say it because I think it's been, with COVID dollars that have come in, and increased revenues that we weren't expecting because of, a great economy, in fact, that we've been able to have that option to do it. And here in Windham Central, we've been very careful about dollars, and we've saved wherever we could. So no question, I feel confident on anything we've done. But I want to be on record to say we need to be careful and responsible, and I love the idea of doing it in the future. A policy around a certain dollar amount that we should. It would be a percentage, essentially. I would expect. I think we do 5% in the ed fund or something like that.
Yeah, so I don't think, correct, we've had a policy per se in place, but as you're just saying, we've had a guiding principle. I mean, Lori's always, and we've decided it's generally between 5 and 10% of the budget is a responsible amount to have in fund balance. So that's.
But the reason I just suggested that is because Heidi came to us this year and said, I put a question mark there, because she wasn't sure and being
Yeah.
new. So that's why I think if there's some guidance for her because, and maybe it's more of a procedure so that we can vary, because
That's
remember,
fine too.
yeah, policies are very rigid, so, but, yeah.
I'm fine with that, Rich, procedure.
Yeah, but, and I think that would be a really good discussion in the spring, so that will, and then we can see how things flow, but I know Frank at one time was like trying to do 10%, and so it's kind of been all over. Well, actually, Bob and
Yeah,
you.
I was just gonna say that, Vermont doesn't have any laws about it. There are states that require it, and they cap it and have a minimum, or one or the other, or both, and there are states that don't allow it.
Right.
So there's a lot of variation in what happens nationally with fund balances, so it's just an interesting thing. I don't know, there was even some rumblings at one point, I don't forget, it was the spring maybe or the summer, about the idea that potentially that there could be a clawing back of reserve funds to the ed fund that districts may hold, and so
That's why we want to.
so not having too much is probably, having that number that's whatever 5 to 10 somewhere in that neighborhood is probably a good move, without having an excess amount that could potentially get pulled back in some scheme.
But
Oh, boy, Bob, I'm sorry, I just gotta say, yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's all.
But there has been rumblings,
Yeah,
right?
no,
I know there has.
the
I
problem with
think
clawing
it's
it back,
important.
would they pay, so if we spent more because of things beyond our control, are they gonna give us some of that extra so that the following year, or, it's gotta be, it doesn't have to be, it's government, but.
We could penalize.
I appreciate Bob bringing it up.
Okay,
You can just see by my face where I feel.
but the other thing too, I just saw somewhere there was a school district that had a bond vote and it got turned down. They said, well, it doesn't matter anyways, we got reserve funds, we're gonna cover it. Was that what happened, or did I get that wrong?
I don't remember seeing that.
I think, I don't remember where it was, but wasn't it that they're gonna do it anyways?
I thought it passed, but that showed you.
Oh, maybe it's a different one.
Retail, Rich.
Were you all set?
Yeah, I was gonna mention the same thing Bob mentioned.
Okay, so let's go, we got a couple other things to do on the agenda. Bob says, he wants to be out of here by 10:30, 10:45, I think we can do that. Oh, just so you guys know though, tonight in about an hour, you spent $11,826,500. Think about that for a minute. And divide that by the number of us that are here. We all spent about $1 million each. Cool. District updates. So, Dan, I'm gonna go to you guys first. You got anything fun you wanna tell us that's going on?
I don't think so. We're working on the budget. We're trying to, get people to move into town and live in houses and send their kids to school or have babies or whatever. So, no, not really. Just getting through the day. I will say though that we have a new principal, Dana, who's with us now and I think is working out really fantastically. I would like to say that much.
Seemed a pleasure, the retreat you're talking.
Right,
It was
right,
good.
yeah. And a good name too, right?
Yeah, rides with me.
Thank you, guys. Rachel, you wanna add anything?
No.
Okay. You wanna tell us about Stratton?
Yeah, we're doing okay. I'm interested for this budget season. We have had a lot of move-ins in our community, and that's seemingly what sort of impacts us the most when it comes to budgeting. So I'll be interested to sort of see how that works itself out. But yeah.
Are they real move-ins or they're claiming they moved in? I'm just wondering. We go through the same thing.
Resident police.
Al,
All about budget season. Here we go.
what about the
Buckle up.
Benjamins?
Yeah.
Cool. I'll let you do Windham.
Windham is meeting tomorrow. They are, at the last SU meeting at the retreat, you guys voted to reduce their seat from 2 to 1 because being non-operational, they'll be making a decision around what that representation will look like. And
I have a new board member.
they have a new board member, Howard Iris, who used to be on the West River board for Windham, is now on the Windham board. And so, so they're moving ahead with figuring out what to do with the building. And
I'm presenting a preliminary budget tomorrow.
new budget coming, so.
Cool. And it's always harder to budget when you got a lot of tuition students. I mean, you think you nailed it, and 5 new students move in or 5 move out at 20,000 each. It's game
Well,
changer.
they discovered that when they went non-operational for the elementary, that there were some families who were privately schooling who came back in to get the money that they didn't have on the books previously. So there was a little bit of not a surprise, they knew it, but it was just kind of like, oh, more expenses, yeah.
Hey, Kate, you want to do River Valleys?
I'll let you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
River Valleys, we don't do our budget till later in the spring, so we're gonna give Heidi a little bit of a break, and we're gonna start looking at budgets probably sometime in January. That way we also kind of see what legislature's doing and what the economy's doing, and we can see what we spend. It's worked out really well for us. We do have a new principal too that we're really happy with in Wardsboro, and we've got our 2nd year principal in the Dover building, and it seems to be going really well. They're really working together well. A lot of good things going on, a lot of excitement. We bought an electric school bus thanks to Dwight. Dwight really pushed that. I call it the Electric Avenue bus. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But Dwight and
When you say bought, though, be clear.
well, hang on, I'll get there.
All right.
That's why I said thanks to Dwight, because I'm going to let Dwight just hit it for 1 second. I said I'd love to see it come to Dover and drive around and see how it really does on the hills. And so Dwight and Greg met the driver, and they blew in my garage and tried to buy gas, and I wouldn't sell it to him, and he told me. But we were hoping the bus driver was going to be there, but he was out for the day. But it seemed to really work well. You want to take 2 seconds, Dwight?
Sure, thanks, Rich. Yeah, we were trying to get some gas out of that pump, but couldn't quite do it. We're sorry to block the pump from you. I hope you didn't lose any business because of us. But no, it was great experience driving around and the whole process, working with the Clean School Bus Program with the EPA. It's actually more easy than I thought it would be, considering it was a federal program. But the whole process worked well. The board was behind it from the beginning, which was great, and the program paid the entire cost of the bus of $345,000. So that's exciting. And we also got money from Green Mountain Power for our charging station, another $12,000 for that. So all in all, we got a bus and a charging station for about, we're hoping around 10, 15 grand. And hopefully it'll meet our needs. I think it will. It's exciting.
And one of the good things is, so you don't know, Dover actually has a huge solar array, and we had to sell, we had to get people to buy the power, and the fire district bought some of it because it had to be a municipal. And the town and the school and the fire district actually isn't using all theirs, and as West River found, if you don't use it, you lose it after a while. And so this is kind of exciting because we're hoping that, it's going to be almost free. We get
all you had to do was trade in an older bus. That was the only
and we actually bought a bus this year, and we didn't trade the old one in, but I shouldn't say that on TV.
They don't put that on the record.
But we did the same thing when Obama came out with Obama bucks for a bus, and we actually had a fairly new bus, so we made a deal with West River Transportation, and we gave him a fairly decent, fairly new bus in exchange for one of his junkers to cut up. And so we'll still have 2 diesel buses. And Dwight said the board was really all behind it, but
process. You were behind the process, but no one thought it would actually come through.
Mikey and I weren't sure, but it's going to be cool. It'll be a good test. I'm hoping West River can maybe look at it and see if it maybe Marlboro, and maybe it's something good. We're excited because of the charging thing will allow the bus to be warm when the driver shows up and stuff. So there are a lot of benefits. I'm just concerned about cold in the hills, but we'll see.
The battery capacity with the cold.
Right, but they'll be able to charge it fast so it can get fully charged for the afternoon runs too. Where before we thought it might have to do 1 run and then not have to be able to do the 2nd run. So we'll see how it goes.
Or a long extension cord.
Dwight, I'm assuming you'd be willing to talk to Dan, because Dan's like jumping out of his seat right now. He's very excited to hear about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a 5-year program. This is only year 2. Hopefully there are no changes in the coming year, but I would get in on it fast. But I think the next session is just getting underway for the next season. So if you just reach out to me, I'm happy to help you.
That sounds great. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it.
And then you can come right on it too when we get it.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't fit in those seats.
We need a monitor anyways, I've heard. So.
That's right.
So,
Rich,
Yeah.
what happened with there was a change with the food service?
yeah, we're working with West River graciously is giving us, allowing us to buy our food. They're gonna take care of the Wardsboro building, because we have a fully, fully set up kitchen in Dover. Our problem was getting somebody in Wardsboro, so what's happening is Jake is gonna be doing the food, and the cost seems pretty reasonable, and we're gonna just experiment, with it for this year, because we couldn't hire anybody. We did have an open position, but luckily, we had a way to get around it, so.
Cool.
And Jake is, everybody's eating his food the last couple of years. The gentleman knows how to run a food program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys, I think, are doing really good financially, aren't you, with it?
Yeah, we're making
Yeah, we're making
Yeah, so that's a good thing. I'm glad you're making money. It's hopefully gonna be cost neutral
Kids
to
love
us.
kids love it.
Yeah, so. And the other thing is, just so you all know too, one of the things our administrator did, and it came from West River, in Dover, they got a milk machine that nobody kind of wanted, and we're getting fresh milk from a farm in
Is it Miller Farm?
Miller Farm. So, and they've also, in what they were doing is more fresh fruits and vegetables, so they have a serving table there now, and the staff is, we're selling more lunches and more food, more staff is eating, and the kids are happier.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, on Monday, we asked about how many meals are getting served, and Tracy, I think, said that, well, it depends what's on the menu, so it's no different than when we were all in school. If you have pizza, probably, yeah, people go crazy, and you have something really healthy. So let's real quick, I just gotta approve the minutes from our last meeting on 10/23, if I could get a motion from that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Al and a second from Allison. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Hearing none, it appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is. So, hey, anybody who wants to come on December 4th, you can, but probably most of us aren't gonna be here because we don't need it. So the next one is January 22nd, 2025. It'll be after the new year, and most of the budgets will be done by then, right?
Let's hope so.
Hey, Rich, I won't be here for that one,
Okay.
but
You can at a meeting vote one of your others in.
yeah, well, no, I was just talking about, you're gonna want policy stuff, can I do that for March?
And we're also gonna make sure we get everything out though, so you and I need to talk about evaluation.
Oh, yeah, when do you want that to go out?
I think soon, right? And then we
We
can.
wanted
Seemed like it was
before.
later last year, wasn't it? Or?
No, but we want it done
You want-
before, we usually like it before before election, so that if, boards
Gotcha,
change,
right.
it's not all new people. And we want it, so we
December,
usually,
January kind of window.
we send it out usually in December, we can discuss it in January, we want them back by the middle of February,
Gotcha.
1st of March, and then we'll review it with you in the spring.
Yeah, okay.
Because then in the spring meeting, we'll talk about
So
you.
boards should put it on their agendas in January.
Yep.
To do, okay.
And it's one per board, and then it's electronic, and Allison's done really good in kind of giving us the data. We also met with Bob, as we talked about, so we've made some changes a little bit to make it, more informative to Bob and give him what he needs. And I think we changed classes, or people can check in on, are you a school board member, are you administrator, are you central office?
If there's bad stuff on the evaluation, does my 55 years go down? Goes up. Okay, I'm just curious how that works. Because like an escalator clause.
You get time off for good memory.
Turn it down. is what you're saying.
We don't give you as much of a raise.
You'd be the
Hey,
next
Rich,
century
can I-
person.
Can
Go
I just
ahead.
ask for the, if, when the superintendent evaluation gets sent out to boards, that there is a date for return, because I don't necessarily think it has to be done in January, but beginning of February as well. So just have a deadline when it gets sent out, that's
I
all.
think we've been asking for it at the end of February.
It was like March 1st.
March
last
1st,
year.
Yeah,
Exactly. So I'm just trying to, make sure that everybody gets a clear message about when they need, because they don't only meet, some only meet once a month, so.
And they have to have an executive session because Bob can't be there.
Thanks.
He's a pretty influential guy. Cool. So the most important motion of all, Rachel?
Move to adjourn?
Thank you. What time is it? 8:25. You guys are really good. You're 5 minutes early. Yep, Allison seconds it.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye. Say goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Have a good turkey day.
Thank you, Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, you too.